Hi, we are here today with Dr. Nuran Nabi. He is a political and human rights activist, freedom fighter, scientist, author, and a public servant. He has an illustrious career since his early age, and it is an absolute honor for both of us, and especially because of my heritage, for you to be here today, Dr. Nabi, and speak with us. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Appreciate it. Dr. Nabi, you were an activist as a student. You campaigned for the Awami League in Bangladesh. You were part of the non-cooperation movement led by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. You are also called the brains behind the Qadir Bahini and the Bangladesh Liberation War. You worked in demolition during the war. You brought munitions and arms back to Bangladesh. You negotiated with the Indian Army, plus orchestrated the landing of the Indian Army paratroopers in Bangladesh on December 11th. Since then, you have written multiple books about your experience and the involvement of China, Russia, United States, and the war crimes of Pakistan. After the war, you went back to school and graduated from with honors from Dhaka University in biochemistry. You went on to study microbiology for a postgrad degree in Osaka University in Japan, and then you received your PhD also in Japan, and then you came to the United States, do your postdoctoral research, and although you were not a household name in the United States, you're a co-inventor of an household item in the United States, which is the Colgate Total toothpaste, and you've had an illustrious career at Colgate for 22 years as the Associate Director of Research and Development. There isn't, as I mentioned to you earlier, there isn't enough hours in the day where I would not have enough questions for you. I couldn't talk to you all day. But today, given the upcoming 50th anniversary of Bangladesh Independence Day, I would really like to discuss and hear your stories about Bangladesh's independence in 1971 and the events leading up to it and the Bangladesh Liberation War. And at this point, I think I've spoken enough. I'm going to give this over to you, and you can begin and let us know your thoughts and experience and share your stories with us.
Yeah, you really summarized my life. So, and take home message is enough for your audience. Anyway, again, thanks for inviting me to your show. I would love to share my life experience, especially on this occasion, which is that we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh independence, as well as we are also celebrating 101 birthday of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the father of the nation. So this time is special to my life as well as to the life of people of Bangladesh. When I look at a couple of pictures, in one picture we are 7 people, freedom fighter. Now only 2 survive, me and another person. Another wartime photos, group photos also show 7 people, and only 2 are still alive, me and another person. So the warrior or the liberation, the freedom fighters, they are passing away. Many people die during the war, and many people are passing away from natural death because it's almost 50 years plus. Those who are young enough, 20, 35 years old, so it's their time to pass away naturally. So anyway, I will begin my story. When I was a young man, I was born and brought up in a rural area of Bangladesh in the district of Tangal, which is almost center of the country. I was growing up in a very happy environment. It's in a green, natural environment. And also I used to play soccer, volleyball, and also participate in the drama. So I have very happy memory while I was growing up. However, in 1962, there was a flood in the near the Jamuna River. Our village is close to Jamuna River. So in 1962, flood destroyed all the crops in our area, and our area was quite solvent, self-sufficient, and we had very food habit, which is rice and fish. But 1962, when there was a flood, rice paddies were destroyed. So then we have to eat the roti, wheat, instead of rice. So it was a quite cultural shock for young people as well as old people. And during that time, I watched that economic condition in our area, in our village, was going down. I can give you two examples. One was there was a bridge over a canal in the village. It was broken and it was not fixed, and people has inconvenient to crossing the canal. And there was another example. I used to study in a high school in the compound of the old Jamindar landlord, and there was a dispensary, public dispensary. There was a doctor. People used to get help in a medical field, but the doctor in charge of that dispensary or hospital, he left the place, and there was no replacement. No new doctor came, and that dispensary became it's abandoned. It was closed, and then cattle used to roam around the compound. So these are the two examples how economic situation in our area was going down. Then I went to college in Mymensingh, Andaman College. I used to read newspaper through newspaper and other media. I came to know that economic situation in East Pakistan is going down. On the other hand, West Pakistan, they are getting development. There's more schools, more economic facilities. So that struck me. And if you allow me to share the history of Pakistan, which is in 1947, British left India, and then this India and the subcontinent was divided an independent India and a Pakistan. And Pakistan has two wings. East Pakistan, most of the people are Bengali like us, and then West Pakistan. And between these two wings, there was an Indian territory more than 1,000 miles. In other words, these two wings were separated by land of India. And between these two wings, there is nothing common. The climate, race, history, food habit, culture, everything was different. Language, in East Pakistan, mostly we used to speak in Bengali, but in West Pakistan, there are a couple of languages, Punjab, Pashto, and other languages.
Urdu.
So when we were, in the university, when we are observing this, we used to joke that there is nothing common between two wings except 2 points, two things. One is religion, another is PIA, Pakistan International Airlines. It's a sarcastic comment.
Right, of course.
But and then the first point that we have common thing is which is religion. If it is so, then in Arab world, there should not be 30, 40 countries. Based on the religion, there should be one country. In Western world, say in USA, most of the people are Christian religious. If a state could be established on the basis of religion, then Canada, Mexico, forget about Mexico, Canada and North America should have one country. It is not. So historically, there could not be a nation state based on language, based on religion. So to start with, creation of Pakistan, East and West Pakistan, it was a mismatch. It was the beginning of the end of the Pakistan. So these were the physical condition, political and other condition. Moreover, the economic development and political development, there was a discrimination between East and West Pakistan.
May I
And this
just
discrimination is widening.
during your
The
party growing
early
up?
1947.
May I
And
ask you
then
a question for our audience? Why? Because since there was so much difference between East Pakistan and West Pakistan, East Pakistan mainly being the land of Bengalis. Why do you what was the reasoning for the British and the Indians for in the Indian subcontinent to divide it into India and West and East Pakistan? Why why join them together?
it's a very short sight of the then leaders who claim that they are the leaders for independence of British. The Nehru Gandhi, they wanted India dominated by Hindus.
Mhm.
And when Muslim leaders like Jinnah and other
Mhm.
leaders, they wanted to have their own land based on the Muslim majority. And British, it was easy way there for them to get out. So they left British,
Especially
they
post
left India, divided into two countries.
especially post
So
World War II, this was the easy solution for them.
exactly, and they were kind of forced to live in a hurry. That's why they did not care. And Jinnah wanted to have a state based on Muslims so that he could be the leader. That's why he opted for Pakistan. And Nehru and Gandhi, they wanted to have a Hindu majority India. That's why they accept the partition. So anyway, the point I was making is that right after independence, 1947, the economic and political discrimination was widening instead of closing. And then the young political leader, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he understood that the fate of Bengali will never be never improved under Pakistani structure. So he thought that Bengali must have their own rights to rule themselves. Then Pakistani leadership, Jinnah made a blunder. He declared that in Pakistan, there will be only one state language, that would be Urdu, not Bengali. But during that time, majority of the population, almost more than 56% population of Pakistan was Bengali. So Bengalis people's language was majority people's language in Pakistan. So Bengali people are always fair. They demanded that instead of Urdu, or in other words, along with Urdu, Bengali also should be the state language. As based on their majority, they could have asked that only Bengali should be
Of course.
the state language of Pakistan. They did not. They said along with Urdu, Bengali also should be the state language. And by the way, in West Pakistan, Urdu was not spoken by majority of West Pakistani people.
Yes, they had Pashto and everything else.
There are Punjabi, Pashto, Sindhi.
Mhm.
So Urdu speaking people, even one minority in West Pakistan.
Or even a greater
However,
minority.
Jinnah was adamant.
Mhm.
Then the student organization, they thought that this Urdu only should be the language of Pakistan. That does not only mean that Bengali people will lose their mother tongue, but it is also that they will lose their political power, because language represents the culture. So that's why students, leaders, and also, by the way, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman established Students' League in Bangladesh in 1948. He thought that, the young generation students, they don't have much to lose. They can easily join the movement, political movement. So that's why he first established the student organization, Student League. Then they were making movement asking that Bengali should be the language, also the state language. Pakistani leader said no. Then students started hesitating. On February 21st in 1952, they brought out a procession from medical college campus to go to the assembly, East Pakistan Assembly, which was close to the medical school. The session of the assembly was in session. So they decided that they will go to that assembly in a procession and they will demand that Bengali also should be the state language of Pakistan. Then Pakistani ruler, they imposed 144 section of the law, which is that people more than four person cannot be get together. In other words, they try to stop this demonstration, but students, leaders and students activists, they were adamant, so they brought out the procession of 4 people which is within the law, and they get out from the medical college campus and started walking to the assembly. Then police fired on them. 4 or 5 students were killed. More students were killed, but the Pakistani police and the administration, they hide the dead body. So wow. We counted only 4 people. So this started this Bengali language nationalism movement. So Bengali people, that was the first time in the world history that a nation sacrificed their lives to have the rights to speak their mother language. So anyway, so over the days and years, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman led this Bengali movement into a liberation movement, from nationalism to liberation movement. How did he do that? In 1965, he attended a meeting in Lahore, West Pakistan. And in that meeting, he introduced 6-point charters, political demands for the autonomy of East Bengal or East Pakistan. And this 6-point charter, if you analyze, if it is implemented, East Pakistan would be almost independent, because under that 6-point charter, East Pakistan will have the right to impose their own taxes. If they want, they could have their own currencies. So if in a country, if one wings has the right to introduce their own currency, right to impose taxes, the government's authority, taxing is a authority of the government. And Sheikh Mujib's 6-point that denied. So Pakistani ruler clearly saw that 6-point is nothing but 1 point. That means independent of Bangladesh. Right. And Sheikh Mujib also knew that the West Pakistani ruler know this significance of the 6-point charter. And that's why after presenting this in the meeting, he came back to his hotel and then share with his colleagues that I gave 6-point charter. The Pakistani ruler know it means 1-point charter, that means independence. So they will not compromise. We have to make movement to achieve this demand. Anyway, so Sheikh Mujib returned back to East Bengal, and then he was making PR movement to support the demands, public demands for his 6-point charter. And as a follow-up of those meetings, he came to Mymensingh. That time I was a student of Mymensingh Andaman College. There was a public meeting, public gathering in front of USIS Center, a small playground. Only 400-500 people were there. That is the first time I saw Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. I never see such a smart Bengali man in my life. He's a tall person wearing white, we call it pajama and Punjabi, with a black frame eyeglass and big mustache and black brush hair. I'm literally, that was the first time I saw such a handsome Bengali people. And in his thunderous voice, he said, that time Pakistani ruler was Field Marshal Ayub Khan. In a thunderous voice, he said, President Mr. Khan, I have no quarrel with you personally. My 6-point charter is, I launched is to establish the autonomy of my people, East Pakistan. If 6-point charter is implemented, then we can solve our own problem. We don't have to look up or depend on the central government. Sheikh Mujib, I was really impressed with his speech and the outlook. And on that spot, I thought he's the leader who can solve our problem. He's the leader, he can improve the situation in my village and all over the country. And so I accepted him as my leader. He never looked for me as his supporter or worker. So I really liked him, and I thought I will work with him, whatever demands he asked for our people. From that meeting, he went to Dhaka. He was arrested at the rail station, put behind the bar. His people went to court. He was released. He went to another district. Again, he was arrested and put behind bar. In this way, while he was campaigning for 6-point charter, he was arrested 8 times in 3 months.
Wow.
Finally, Ayub Khan, his administration, arrested Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in charge of treason. That 6-point is nothing but treason. It will divide the Pakistan. That's why they put a Agartala conspiracy case to arrest him, and he was put behind bar. Then with the student at Dhaka University, I was an activist that time at Dhaka University. We, under the leadership of a student leader, Tofail Ahmed, and 3 fractions of student organization, Students League, we call Th3 League, then Student Union, one was pro-Peking, another fraction of Student Union, pro-Russia. These 3 organizations formed a student movement organization, and they pointed 11-point charter that include 6-point charter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and of our own 5 points, which include resignation of Field Marshal Ayub Khan, restoration of democracy and must give a election, and the withdrawal of Agartala's case, conspiracy case, and release Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So on the basis of this 11-point charter, we started movement, and several students were killed. One teacher of Russia University, he was bayoneted to death by military. All this led our movement in a kind of mass uprising, and then general people also joined our movement. Then a general uprising happened, and Ayub Khan was forced to resign, but he handed over power to another general, General Yahya Khan. So Yahya Khan thought, based on his military intelligence report, we call ISI report, that ISI's report says that if there is a general election, Yahya Khan has to give election because there is a public pressure. And his report says that if there is election, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and no other political party will win majority in the election. So they easily, by divide and rule and managing this smaller groups, he can remain in power for another 10 years, just like Ayub Khan. So on that basis, he agreed to give election. And the election, to the surprise of the nation as well as the world, Sheikh Mujib's Awami League party became majority party in central parliament, and almost 99% seats were owned by Awami League, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's party in East Pakistan. So that established Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the leader of Bengal, leader of Bangladesh, as well as leader of Pakistan.
Wow.
When the result came in, General Yahya Khan forced to declare that Sheikh Mujib will be the future Prime Minister of Pakistan. And Sheikh Mujib claimed that during campaign, I have mentioned about the 6-point charter. So I won the election on the basis of 6-point charter for the autonomy. So Pakistani constitution, we will write based on my 6-point charter program for autonomy. And Yahya Khan was forced to set up a date, March 3rd, the National Parliament of newly elected body of Pakistan would meet in a session on 3rd March in Dhaka, and they will form the Pakistani constitution based on 6-point charter, as well as Sheikh Hasina will be, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman will be the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And on 1st March 1971, when by the time we conferred a honorary title on Sheikh Mujib, that Bongo Bandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, which means friend of Bengal.
Right.
So right after this, his release from the Agartala conspiracy student body conferred this honor to him, that he's a friend of Bengal. So we used to call him from that point Bongo Bandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Anyway, Bongo Bandhu was having a meeting of his newly elected parliamentarian in Dhaka on 1st March. While he is in the meeting, he heard that Yahya Khan declared the postponement of the new Constitution Assembly to be held on March 3rd in Dhaka. In parliamentary system, President can call the assembly only on the advice of the Prime Minister, or can postpone only at the advice of the Prime Minister or leader of the House.
Right.
So it was an insult and a challenge to Bongo Bandhu that Yahya Khan will never allow to form a constitution based on 6-point, and he will never allow or he will never transfer power from his hand to Bongo Bandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman as a Prime Minister. So Bongo Bandhu saw this conspiracy very clearly, and he thought this is a conspiracy not to hand over power to him, and never ever grant the autonomy or improve the life and quality of life and economic development in Pakistan. So Bongo Bandhu, on that day, I was in my university and having the last hour of our practical exam of BS honors. We finished our written exam. Then we are having, sorry about that.
No worries.
We are having the laboratory exam, and that was only last hour remained to finish. That time we heard that Bongo Bandhu challenged Yahya Khan's action and declared the non-cooperation movement. And responding to his call, thousands of people came out on the street in a procession. And at Karjan Hall, where we are having our exam, we can see down on the street that people were protesting and supporting Bongo Bandhu's non-cooperation movement.
I have a few
So
questions.
we went down to the street and joined the procession. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a few questions actually. So first and foremost, well, one comment first. You've been speaking so greatly about Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. For our audience, he's actually pictured right behind Dr. Nobi's
Yes.
on his desk. He was an incredible figure, both in his physical stature and, as you've said, his thunderous voice. Just so we're clear, he legitimately won the election.
Yes.
And once he won the election, what Yahya Khan was doing was, in fact, by the current political laws, it was illegal. Correct, because he could not, postpone
Yeah,
a
that was
meeting.
illegal.
It was illegal.
That was illegal. As I mentioned, that in a parliamentary system, leader of the house, which was Sheikh Mujib, he won the majority of the seats in parliament. This National Assembly session would be called after the recommendation of the leader of the house.
Right.
And also, if it has to be postponed, that must be on the basis of the recommendation of the leader of the house. In that case, it was Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. It was
Exactly.
Bangabandhu who advised Yahya Khan to have this meeting on March 3rd. And if it could have been postponed, then it should be advice of the Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. But Yahya Khan, in cooperation with the leader of the minority house, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, they conspired that they will never hand over power to Bangabandhu,
Right.
and they will never allow to form the constitution of Pakistan based on 6-point autonomy.
Understood. And my final question regarding this day that you're talking about, when you're taking your practical exams, and you've heard that Bangabandhu refused the postponement of Yahya Khan's postponement
and call for non-cooperation
movement. So, one, I would love for you to describe or explain what the non-cooperation movement was. But before that, especially in the last year, we've seen in the United States so many rallies, so many protests. But that kind of organization is possible today because we have social media, because we have the internet. You mentioned that while you're taking your exam, you saw thousands of people in the street. You've heard that Bangabandhu has declared this non-cooperation movement. How was this message being spread amongst the students and among the people?
It's an interesting question, especially the generation of people from this time of the history. That time we don't have any cell phone.
Exactly.
We don't have any social media, no internet, nothing. But what happened during liberation movement, we form a closed network. And of course, we have a telephone, but not wireless. So we used this network which developed during the liberation movement, during the election, during the national uprising. So we used to know who is the leader of that area.
Got it.
So this message was transmitted like that, just like, a relay race, You inform one of your activists and he then relay this information to next and next. So that's how, and also during that was a tumultuous time. We were watchful, everybody was watchful, what will happen? Because we are Pakistani military, bureaucratic, and landlord syndicate. It was a coalition of West Pakistan. They ruled Pakistan for 10 years, and Ayub Khan led that clique.
Right.
So we knew that something may happen went wrong. And this Pakistani ruler, they will never relinquish their benefits, their power. So we are watchful. And that's why Bangabandhu called all the members, elected members, and forced them to take oath that we will base our constitution on 6-point charter, so that nobody can betray the cause of Bengali people. So there was and also by that time, Bangabandhu's leadership is so powerful. I give one example. I think since we have a time, let me
Of
share
course, please.
some story. When Bangabandhu was arrested in town for treason and put behind bar for this Agartala conspiracy case, then after few so-called investigation, they set up a court martial to try Bangabandhu and other co-accused,
Mm-hmm.
co-accused
Yeah.
trial in a military court so that they can kill Sheikh Mujib and others through treason charge. So when Bangabandhu was picked up, before that all other about 32 accused in the Agartala conspiracy case. So all others were picked up before Bangabandhu. Bangabandhu was put in jail within the cantonment. When he was picked up at the last person, and when he entered the bus, he saw all the people accused of Agartala case in the bus. Everybody was gloomy. They are not talking. They are really concerned about their future. So Bangabandhu, as usual, he said, "Why are you so sad? Why are you kept quiet?" Then one captain, that time was captain, Shaukat Ali,
Mm-hmm.
he said, "Sir, we are going to the martial law court to face the trial, and they will make us guilty, and then they will possibly kill all of us in a court martial.
Mm-hmm.
We are young, we have children, we have our families, so we must feel concerned and we must feel sorry."
Mm-hmm.
Then Bangabandhu, as usual, his very bold voice, he said, "Listen to me. There is a movement outside, our movement, students' movement, the 11-point charter. There's a movement outside. The court martial, they will not be able to finish the trial. There will be people surprising. They will be forced to release us. And then there will be election. In that election, my party will win. But I know they will not hand over power to us." Then a military officer like you, he was addressing Captain Shaukat. Then a military officer like you, I need you. We have to fight back to gain our independence. So what a roadmap was in his brain. Whatever he said,
Happened.
everybody came true.
Right. Everyone know that.
So he was released. There was election, his party won election, and they did not hand over power. Then we had to fight back to gain independence. This is one example. Another example during that time, first day of the court martial, Bangabandhu was a politician. He knew a lot of journalists.
Mm-hmm.
So first day, a few of the journalists, including Foyes, talked to him, came to close to him before the start of the trial. They have some kind of chit chat. Looking or observing this, the court martial chairman, he imposed a restriction that no journalist can talk to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in the court. So next day when Sheikh Mujib came to the court, as usual, like yesterday, he tried to connect, eye contact, he started to conversation before the start of the trial. Mm-hmm. And he found that nobody was looking at him, nobody wants to talk to him.
Because the journalists were ordered not to speak with them.
Then Sheikh Mujib again in bold voice, thunderous voice, he said, Foyez, senior journalist, mm-hmm. Foyez, if you want to live in Bangladesh, you have to talk to Sheikh Mujib. What a confidence
Right.
he had.
Mhm.
So these are the examples that when Yahya Khan postponed this session of the parliament,
Mhm.
already Sheikh Mujib Bangabandhu, he was the officially, legally elected leader of the Pakistani Assembly to become the prime minister.
Mhm.
And of course, his party owned all the seats, one or two, except out of 301 or two, all the seats were owned by his party. So his party entitled to form a provincial government also.
Right.
So when he heard this declaration, he declared non-cooperation movement.
Which is what?
University was closed, and we all the activists of the liberation movement became activists of the non-cooperation movement. Then on 1st January, when we came out on the street, we found all the procession was going to the stadium,
Okay.
and that there is a rumor that Sheikh Mujib Bangabandhu will come there, will address the gathering.
Mhm.
We went there. Sheikh Mujibur was Bangabandhu was not there. Then Tofail Ahmed, leader of the Lebanon movement, he came and he said, I talked to the leader, Bangabandhu. He is not coming here today. He will address the nation in race course on March 7.
Mhm.
And he will put a kind of declaration what needs to be done.
Mhm.
So we were activists for this gathering. We are working how to make it successful. As you mentioned that, we went to area, be out of this district,
Mhm.
and organize people to come to that meeting on 7th March. In that meeting, it was a historic speech by Bangabandhu. Now it is accepted in a UNESCO, one of the historical speech.
Mhm.
So in that speech, there are thousands of people. So he declared 8 minute speech. It was every word has a meaning,
Yeah.
and it was extempo. It was not a written statement. It's a written speech. He said, "This time our movement is for our independence.
Yes.
This time our struggle is for liberation." And final call was, whatever you have in your hand, you
Yep.
must fight against the enemy. So people like me, those who are activists of liberation movement, activists of non-cooperation movement, it was a clear signal to me that Bangabandhu declared the independence of Bangladesh. When leader of the house, majority leader said that this time our struggle is for independence, then there is no more need to formal declaration of independence.
Yes.
So anyway,
Well.
after that meeting, Yehakan came to Dhaka in disguise to have a negotiation that I want to sit down with Mujib Bangabandhu and solve this political problem. But in fact, he was buying time to bring arms and ammunition and soldiers from West Pakistan. He already made a plan that he will attack militarily people of Bangladesh and arrest the leaders, and then he will control the situation, because during this non-cooperation movement, East Pakistan was being ruled by the boys or order of Sheikh
Sheikh Mujibur Rahman.
Mujibur Rahman from Bangabandhu.
Mhm.
There was no central authority in that time in East Pakistan, East Bengal. Office, government office will be closed by the order of Bangabandhu.
Mhm.
Which day they have to collect the salary. In other words, everything, just like the White House rules the USA,
Mhm.
Bangabandhu's 32 Dhanbani residence, that was the center of power. He was controlling, and everything was under his control. There was nothing in control of central government. And 23rd March is the Republican Day of Pakistan.
Mhm.
On that day, Pakistani flag should be raised in every places.
Mhm.
But on 23rd March of 1971, in whole East Bengal, East Pakistan, only two Pakistani flags were flown. One was the governor house, another in cantonment.
Gotcha.
And rest of the country, every house, even Bangabandhu's car has a map of Bangladesh. By the time student, they made a map of Bangladesh, a green background,
Mm.
and there is a red map of Bengal. Later, this red map was changed with a circle, sun, a
Uh-huh.
red sun. So anyway, so
And
this was the situation, to answer your question, this was the situation of the non-cooperation movement. Bangabandhu, in fact, was de facto ruler of East Pakistan, while Yahya Khan came and negotiating every day.
mhm,
But finally, on 25th March, we were told that negotiation between Bangabandhu and Yahya Khan was breakdown. Yahya Khan left the cantonment to go to and arrived at the airport to go to West Pakistan. And they have decided to attack Bangladesh, especially Dhaka University and Dhaka City, and armed forces like headquarters of Bengali soldiers, like police office in police headquarters in Dhaka, then BDR headquarters in Pilkhana, and also Dhaka University. They decided to attack. So we are informed that that will happen. So we are instructed by our central leader that we have to go to near the Dhaka University entrance, near the Dhaka, near the Shahbag Hotel, which is now Bangabandhu Medical University.
mhm,
So four of us, the activists from FA Hall, we went to Iqbal Hall, the central office of the student organization. We are told that Pakistani military already on the way towards Dhaka city, Dhaka campus, Dhaka University campus. And we are instructed to get some people from the slum area behind the student dormitory, Jinnah Hall,
mhm,
and Mohsin Hall. So we went there and collect for 50, 60 people. Then we started putting barricade near the entrance. Now where is before there was a water um,
fountain.
uh, uh, like what is called
The
for
water fountain. Water fountain.
water fountain.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was a water fountain, and now it's called this Shahbag Chattar, where
Yep.
this Ganajagaran Manch was held.
Right.
So near in front of that Shahbag Hotel, there was a building being constructed. It's supposed to be the office of the Muslim League,
Mhm,
Ayub Khan's Muslim League.
mhm,
There were a lot of construction material, rods, cements, bricks. So we are using those things. We use those things to build a barrier. So on March 25th, almost midnight, quarter to 12,
mhm,
couple of army chiefs coming towards us
mhm,
to enter into the Dhaka University campus. When they saw us that we are making barricade, so with our noises we brought their attention. They uh, turned the jeep on us and turned the headlight on,
mhm,
then fired on us with machine gun. I was a little bit tired taking rest on the footpath. So when machine gun started, I jumped into the ditch next to the road. And then when I regained my conscious, then I ran towards this safety place to the west. There was my relative's house. Anyway, on the spot, more than 100 people were injured and killed. And then I ran to my cousin's house. After a few minutes, we started firing, sounds of firing and fire in Dhaka University halls, and then Pilkhana, the headquarters of border security force. Most of them were Bengali, and then Shahabad, and then police headquarters in Shahbag area, and then also sounds of fire, gunfire, as well as fires and smokes were coming from old city of Dhaka. So it started like a hell. So many guns fire, so many fire as well as smokes. So this continued whole night. So that's the beginning of Pakistani genocide in
And
Bangladesh. And I mentioned in my road in my book that arguably we faced the first bullets of
yes,
Pakistani genocide on that day on the spot,
yeah.
25th March, quarter to 12 in front of the Bangabandhu Medical College.
I'm
So
glad.
that's how war started.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Wow. I I think if you have any questions, but
Yeah,
I can't just want to comment. It's mind blowing to me that you, with such ease, you mention. Well, then they started firing machine guns on us, and I jumped into a ditch, and I gained my consciousness, and I ran to my cousin's house. You say it so easily, and perhaps because you've done so many more incredible feats afterwards throughout the war, it must have been an incredibly scary
Of
situation.
course, of course.
You're a kid.
That was the first time in my life I heard the sound of machine gun. Ever. So we are so scared, and I did not know how did I jump on the ditch on the. So it was kind of spontaneous action, and the hue and cry of those who were injured and
Or hit.
who were killed. I cannot describe in my words what was the situation. You are right that I can easily say now, but
Yeah.
the moment of that time, is not described.
None of it was
I
easy.
don't have enough words to describe this moment. And especially, it did not stop there. When I went to my cousin's house, and after a little bit checking my body whether I was hit by bullet, but I had some scratches on my body from falling on the disc and then running. But after a few minutes, when these fires was happening in 4 or 5 places and then smoke is coming out, it was so horrifying. It was so scary. We did not know what would happen. Especially me, I was a political activist. We expected that we fought the liberation movement. We have the people's uprising. Pakistani were forced to give election, release Bangabandhu election, and we won the election. We are we are expecting that after all these years, Bengali will go to power and will be no more exploited. But all on a sudden, these things happen. And then while this almost 24 hours, they imposed curfew,
Mhm.
then I was thinking about Bangabandhu, what happened to him? And all this fighting in Razarbagh police station and Pilkhana BDR headquarters, was it one-way fighting? Or our Bengali people are also fighting back? We
Right.
have no idea what is going on. So we have gone through these 24 hours under so much stress and so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
And it's no way of describing this.
Before we move forward, I think we both have a few questions. I'm going to hand this over to Mike for a moment. Mike, go ahead.
to our audience who just experienced this amazing story, obviously in the book,
Bullets of 71.
Bullets of 71. I want the audience to know in concept because, we given, Dr. Nobi has given timelines and they have to understand specifically like how young you were to
Yeah.
meet such high political leaders of such. And I believe I saw a photo of you, and you looked like a child. And I want the audience to actually hear from you specifically during this time. How old were you Just a
I
little
was
bit.
I was 22 years old,
Wow.
but I was active as a activist about 17 years old. And again, the atmosphere in my village, made me politically awareness person. So I question asked to myself. I asked question to myself, why West Pakistan is having the development. I give you an example. I can give you an exact number. Say during 1947, say 500 school, college, university were in East Pakistan. In 10 years, that number, both East and West has same number of education institution. In 10 years, in West Pakistan, this number of educational institution doubled to 1,000. And in Bangladesh, in East Pakistan, it did not go up. It went down. Some of the schools were broken, it was never fixed. It was stopped. So these are the example of disparity between East and West. And that made me politically aware person that, this can't be, this should not be. And then came Sheikh Mujib, and he answered my question. He answered my call that there should be something done and we need a leader, and that is Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And maybe another day I will describe his character,
Of course.
why he became leader. He was just like me. He born in a village and growing up in the village rural area. And then he became a student leader, young leader, and a political leader, finally, father of the nation. It's not that people gave him. He earned this. And he has qualification, quality. That's why people made him Bangabandhu, friend of Bengal. Maybe another session we'll discuss about Bangabandhu.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought him up because I want to go back to his iconic speech that you mentioned from March 7th at the stadium. Um, you've translated it for us, for our audience in English. I'm sure you remember the exact lines in Bengali.
Yes, exactly. এবারের
Would you?
সংগ্রাম, মুক্তির সংগ্রাম,
Yep.
এবারের সংগ্রাম, স্বাধীনতার সংগ্রাম। তোমাদের কাছে যা কিছু আছে তাই নিয়ে শত্রুর মোকাবেলা করো। তাদেরকে আমরা ভাতে মারবো, পানিতে মারবো। আমরা অনেক রক্ত দিয়েছি, আরো রক্ত দিতে রাজি আছি, কিন্তু দেশকে এবার মুক্ত করে ছাড়বো ইনশাল্লাহ। And I said, it was not a written speech. It was
wasn't.
extempo, but every word, it's a in Bengali we call Goddo Kavita. That means as if somebody has a good speech writer has written that speech. No, it was in his brain.
Yeah.
And each word has a meaning. There was no extra word. And there is a clear instruction. I was in the war and I studied war books. In the war, there was a saying, when war started or war imposed on you, you have to fight back whatever you have. You don't have time to wait and build arms and ammunition, regain your resources. You can't. You have to fight right away. And that's why he instructed us. তোমাদের যা কিছু আছে তাই নিয়ে শত্রুর মোকাবেলা করো. Whatever you have, you faced the enemy. You fight back with enemy.
Yeah. To this day, I mean, like as you've said it, and I'm privileged enough right at the moment to have understood what you said because of the language. There is a line that you did not translate, which says that we have given blood, and if necessary, we will give more blood. But this time, we will have our independence.
Yeah.
I just got goosebumps as you said it because it is such an iconic speech, and as you mentioned that UNESCO has declared this as one of the heritage sites, of Bangladesh. You've even on the 25th night, on the turning into 26th, You were wondering what happened to Bongobuntu.
Yes.
Is he okay? Is our people fighting? You mentioned that this is the beginning of the genocide. Needless
Yeah.
to say that his speech fueled the the idea of liberation, the idea of independence in everyone who has heard it and into the veins of the country of Bangladesh. When they attacked Dhaka, and especially Dhaka University, and just for our audience, Dhaka is the capital of Bangladesh. At that time, it was spelled Dhaka, D-A-C-C-A. Since then, our independence, we have, we call it Dhaka, it's Dhaka. Dhaka University, the main and the most illustrious university in Bangladesh, they were targeting the university because the movement began from there, correct?
Yes. Now, if I say that Dhaka University led the liberation of Bangladesh or made Bangladesh an independent country, it will not be exaggeration.
Yeah.
Because movement start there. And during those tumultuous day, every day we used to have a procession. We have to be agitation. We used to fight with the police. So that's why army was angry that it is the student of Dhaka University who is this cause of all troubles. That's why they targeted Dhaka University along with police headquarters, along with BDR headquarters. That they thought that if they crush us, these three sections of the part of the Dhaka city, possibly they can control the Dhaka, but they were wrong. But people were determined to sacrifice their lives for the liberation of the country. We said enough is enough.
Yeah.
We have to fight back.
And as you mentioned, enough is enough. I would like you to touch on the intellectual genocide that happened on day one. But before that, I'm sure Mike is also curious about this because I was trying to explain to him earlier about how Pakistan managed to get so many troops, ammunitions prior to the attack on March 25th or March 25th night. How was that possible? Were they able to, like, you guys must have had an idea that something's happening. You knew that they were not going to give up power. How were they able to organize such an attack? I know that many plainclothes Pakistani army soldiers came into East Pakistan, into Bangladesh from West Pakistan. How was that orchestrated on their end? Could you shed some light on that?
It's a rough estimate, not exact numbers. Say there were about 50,000 soldiers in East Pakistan, Pakistani soldiers before the war.
Okay.
And since they decided that they will attack East Pakistan, that's why he talked with Bangabandhu to kill time and brought every night 2-3 airplanes, soldiers and ammunition, and they added about another 50,000. So during the when they attack on East Pakistan on Bangladesh on 25th March, by that time their strength was almost 100,000 soldiers, air force, military, navy. So they thought that they can crush this police headquarters and the BDR headquarters and the Dhaka University, few dormitories in half an hour. The secret code of this operation was Operation Searchlight. They thought by Operation Searchlight they will control Dhaka city within night, but they forgot that Bengali people under the leadership of Bangabandhu, they were determined to have their own country, own liberated East Pakistan, have an independent Bangladesh. That's why people like me, and also when there was atrocity, you see, let me explain. There are three kinds of freedom fighters in Bangladesh Liberation War. One category was people like us, we are activists. Another category of freedom fighters who saw these killings and atrocities, genocides, they joined freedom fighters. And there are third category of freedom fighters, those who have no other option to fight back, either fight or they will be killed. So combination of these three category of freedom fighters, all the people of Bangladesh join in the liberation war. They help in some way. Like people as we were in the field, frontline freedom fighters, but those people who supported us, say, as for example, we fought in Tangail, which is within the country.
Mhm.
It's about 150 miles from Indian border and about 50, 70 miles from north of capital. So we had no supply lines. How did we survive? Who fed us? People. And in our liberation war, there are military people defected from those Pakistani army, police, and join us. And then student activists, political activists, as well as professional people, doctor, engineer, government workers, businessmen. So it was a people's war. That's why we were successful in spite of the powerful military operation by Pakistani army.
Um, could you, thank you for explaining that. Could you shed some light on the intellectual genocide committed by Pakistan? It
Yeah,
is
that's
by
that's
hand
that's
of.
very close to my heart
Mhm.
because I was a Dhaka University student on the night of uh, 25th March or early
March 26th.
morning of March 26th. When they enter into the Dhaka University, attack every dormitory, and each dormitory there were a house teacher and provost. They are the teachers. Provost is senior teacher and young teacher house teacher. They on that night they killed this kind of people. One of them was Khan Kadem, a professor in physics. He was an absent-minded professor. Nobody can imagine that anybody can touch him, forget about killing him. So such a philosophical professor, they killed him and they killed many others. But final blow they gave on before 16 December, before surrender, when Pakistani military and authority was sure that they are losing, they have to surrender.
Mhm.
Before that night, with the help of the Bengali collaborator, Jamaat-e Islam,
Mhm.
their student front was the Islami Shibir.
Mhm.
They identify the house of the Bengali intellectual on December 14th, 15th, even 16th. And military picked up those Bengali intellectual from their homes because they wanted to destroy the intellectual people of our nation, so that because intellectual people, they contribute to the development of the nation. So they, if they can kill this crime of the society, then we'll have difficulty to build independent Bangladesh. That's why they picked up. And a couple of them were very close to me, like this our medical director of medical center. I had a small pox. I was hospitalized several weeks, and he came to me and he used to discuss, talk. He was a left oriented intellectual.
Mhm.
The Pakistani knew it. He was picked up and he was killed. And there are many other people like G.C. Dev,
Mhm.
chairman and professor and chairman of philosophy department. He was again another saint-looking person. White hair, white beard. He used to come to he used to visit different halls in the weekend and talked with us in the green lawn, talked about philosophy, talked about life. We never thought that he could be killed. He was so innocent people. He was killed because he was a Hindu. He was an intellectual. He was picked up. His home was attacked and he was killed at home along with his, he was a bachelor,
Mhm.
evergreen bachelor, but he adopted daughter. So his daughter and his son-in-law, they were killed, and they killed his. It was I put wrote down all this description tragic in my book. বাংলাদেশে পাকিস্তানিদের গণহত্যা এবং প্রেসিডেন্ট নিক্সন কিসিঙ্গারের দায়। In English, the genocide in Bangladesh and Pakistan and role of President Nixon and Kissinger. In this book, I described the
And that is a whole
killing
podcast
of
in itself.
killing of Jesse Dev.
Yeah.
What a brutal killing, you know. So there are a lot of tragedy and also unspeakable description.
And I'm glad you brought up Jesse Deb and his murder. That is what it is his murder.
Clearly, murder.
Yeah, it's his murder because he was an intellectual, and on top of that, he was Hindu. Between the night of March 26th and the last few days of the war, Pakistani military made a
list. They
list.
made a list.
They made a list. Very close to the Holocaust. Exactly what they happened to exactly what they did. The Nazis did with the Jewish people in many European countries.
Exactly. In the Second World War, the Jewish people, they were forced to put a kind of name tag with
And the yellow bands.
bands.
Yeah.
And Pakistani did same thing. They went to Hindu people's house and marked with H, Hindu.
Wow.
And then later Razakars and their forces came and picked up and killed them.
Define what Rajakars
And
are.
this is not my description. Senator Kennedy, when he visited East Pakistan during the war, in his report, he says things like that.
Yeah, could you describe for our audience what are Rajakars?
Razakars is, during the liberation movement and during the election as well as the war, a section of Bangladeshi people, they call themselves Jamate Islam. That means Party of Islam. They supported Pakistan. They supported Pakistani soldiers against us. Their role was since they are Bengali, they used to know the location house of the political leaders, and also in these cities or town and village who are the freedom fighters. So they were informer and collaborator with Pakistani army. That's what we call them, collaborator. And in this Arabic word, Razakar is also collaborator. So they supported Pakistani soldiers. They participated in this genocide, war crimes, rape, burning of the house, looting of the house. So this sort of anti-humanity activity or war crimes, they participated and helped Pakistani soldiers.
And just to clarify the situation for our audience, while the whole Bangladeshi people were in a movement, a cultural movement for their language, for their independence, to protect its people, the smaller sect of Islamic or very right-wing, very Islamic group would help Pakistan and try to be on the basis of religion only. The Bangladeshi liberation movement was not based on religion; it was based on language and its people.
It was a secular movement.
Exactly. But on the other hand, them helping out Pakistan was extremist Islamic movement. And you mentioned rape as well, because that's another thing that I want to speak to you about, the Pakistani rape camps, where roughly 300 to 400,000 women were raped, Bengali women were raped because they're literally trying to breed them out. And in the name of Islam, these Rajakars were participated in these rape camps, brought women there. So I'm not,
Yeah.
it's so I want to clarify for the audience, it is, although in the name of Islam they're doing this, it is the furthest thing from any religious act. They were cruel people. Were motivated by, although they said they were motivated by religion, but it was motivated by the Pakistani rule, and they wanted to aid them. I want to also go back that you mentioned that they labeled just like the Jewish, with how the Jewish people suffered during the Nazi era. Christians, I know we have a small Jewish population in Bangladesh as well. Christians, Hindus were treated the exact same way by the Pakistanis. And at times, if Muslims were, gathered together, if they could not recite verses from the Quran, they were also ostracized, at times killed. Could you tell us a little bit about, the religious persecution that we had?
If you analyze the victims, it was proportional to the number of population.
Okay.
Since Muslims were majority victims were Muslims. But Susan Miller, who wrote, it's in my book,
Mhm.
Bullets of 71, who wrote about this genocide, she mentioned that this rape victim, there is no age limit, from young to old and ugly to beautiful, and Hindus, Muslims, Christians, it does not matter. It's just like she compared that picking up cigarette smoking, you just pick up one, you smoke, and then you discard it. So whoever, and it's not that only the ordinary soldiers did this crime. They were told that this liberated or occupied people. I know the Bengali. I don't know the translation. Goni moter mal. That means the occupied women, occupied people is your right, your property.
Right.
So that's why they raped women, Bengali woman. It doesn't matter whether she is Hindu, Muslims, Christians, whether she is beautiful or young. It does not matter. It just, these soldiers were in East Pakistan for 9 months. It's so irony and so sad that when a journalist asked Pakistani general, Lieutenant General Niazi, that there is a report your soldiers were raping Bengali women. You know what was his answer?
What was his
He
answer?
said, what do you expect? My boys are fighting in Bengal. They will go to Lahore for sex.
Wow.
This is mentioned in my book. So this rape is not a random situation. It was a policy of the government, Pakistani government, from the top to use this rape as a weapon, war weapon, because Bengali people are conservative people. And if a member of their family is raped, it's a shame on them. Possibly they thought that they will give up arms, they will stop fighting, and they will conquer, or they will keep continuing occupying Bengal. So they used rape as a weapon, war weapon. Nowadays it's happening in Middle East,
Yeah.
Syria, Yemen.
Yeah.
So there is a story that General Niazi, he called a meeting of his officers in his cantonment. And he said, he should use this rape as a weapon. Then one young Bengali officer, he objected. He whispered, he did not challenge the general, he whispered along those who were around him that this is not acceptable. He left the meeting. And next day, his dead body was found in officer's mess. And then military authority informed his family that he did suicide. And his dead body was not handed over to his family. What happened? He was tortured whole night and killed him. So this is the top general, Lieutenant General of Pakistani forces. So that's why in my book, Bullets of 71, I published a list of 100, 200 officers who were accused of specific case of rape and other crimes. And their rank run between lieutenant general to lieutenant. So all forget about the soldiers. We don't if we don't we just if we ignore them, even the officers, 200 officers, they have specific case against them for human rights violation. So that's what I always say. Bangladesh genocide was the least known genocide to the West, and it was least researched genocide. Because what happened after the war, then other problems in the world came up. Western people were civilized or leading countries, they were focused on those cases, they just forgot about Bangladesh. So that's what I say. Bangladesh genocide, Bangladesh rape was forgotten genocide, forgotten rape case, and it was least researched, least documented genocide.
From my research, I've found out that this was almost 3.5 million people, which is roughly between, I think the top three genocides was the one, of course, the Holocaust, then the one in Sudan, and Bangladesh. Now, you're absolutely right. This is the, least talked about, and, and things happened rapidly in the 70s after the war that no one looked back. Up until recently, I know that there has been, tribunals to bring people, especially the traitors, the collaborators, to justice. That is,
I put one statistics in my book that say, for argument's sake, we say 3 million people are killed. Then in 9 months, 270 days, 16,000 people were killed per day. For argument's sake, it is not 3 million, it's 1.5 million. Still, half of this, about 8,000 people are killed per day. This was the worst genocide in the annals of human history. And this number and this analysis is not my question. It was United Nations report said that.
And to this day, we are discovering, mass graves.
So, when I wrote this book, I was invited by universities, college, library, and asked to give a lecture on Bangladesh genocide. So in the beginning, I saw many subcontinental young people. Some of them might be Pakistani. So I made a disclaimer that this description I'm giving and my experience I'm sharing, it is the generals, rulers, and the people of leader of those days. It's not that I have hate against Pakistan.
Right.
I have nothing against Pakistani people now, those who are young men or women now. We are making this allegation, only Yahya Khan and his administration and his colleagues, his soldiers who are in East Pakistan. But I think these anti-liberation forces and the criminals, war crimes, supporter of war crimes, and even the war criminals, they are more organized. They are more powerful
Today.
Yes. They organized, or they somehow managed to write a book by Sharmila Bose that Yahya Khan was a very kind general. There was no rape happened in Bangladesh. They wrote a book, Reckon with with genocide, whatever, or rape, whatever. I forgot the title. So they before the publication of the book, Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., they organized a publication ceremony. Book was not even published. Woodrow Wilson Center, a powerful think tank, they organized a book event on her book. I came to know, I said, I have written, that time my Bullets of 71 also came few years earlier. I said, I have written a similar book. Will you allow to discuss my book? I was told no. Then I went to I said, I'm coming. Then a security officer called me that you should not come. I said, why? He said, well, we have information, we are going to demonstrate against these events, and it's a federal government. I said, look, I'm a councilman of this one town in this nation. I know the rules. If I would wanted to organize a demonstration, I would give police permission. Did I take their permission? He said, no. Then why are you accusing me? I'm coming and I'll discuss. So I'll contact everything is written, all the emails, everything in my book. This Bangladesh Pakistani গণহত্যা যুদ্ধাপরাধ এবং নিক্সন কিসিঙ্গারের দায়. All the email description is in my book. So I went there, and Sharmila Bose, in her introduction, she said, here, General Yahya Khan was so kind-hearted man. Pakistani made him a demon, a monster. It's not that.
And Pakistan, even Bangladeshi made him a monster.
Yeah, Bangladeshi made him a monster. And Bangladeshi liberation movement was violent. That's why Pakistan were forced to use arms to control them. And there are a lot of other things. So I raised my hand that after she finished, I raised my hand that I want to speak something. Finally, allowed me said, you have only 2 minutes to speak. And they have organizer given her almost an hour. So in 2 minutes, I said, your book is far from the truth. It's kind of a Swiss cheese, a lot of holes. I said, when I was fighting within the country, you were born and brought up in Boston as a 10 years old girl. So I saw in the war field what happened, and you now wrote a book interviewing one person. I said,
who did she interview?
She went to Bangladesh, possibly those who are crime supporter.
Gotcha.
Interviewed few people and said that I interviewed people, there was no rape in Bangladesh. How far it is from the truth. And it was supported by Woodrow Wilson Center.
How is that possible? I mean, I understand that
because we are Bengali, our blood has less values than others. And my credential was not much less than Sharmila Bose.
Oh, absolutely not.
But they did not allow me to discuss about my book. They gave me only 2 minutes. So in 2 minutes, I said, Yahya Khan was a monster. He was a drunk person. He hated Bengalis. And your description is far from the truth. And she has blushed face. And when the moderator asked him, do you want to respond, Dr. Nabi? She even said no. She just moved her head, So that's why it is, we have to make noise ourselves. Unfortunately, we are not in such a position. Our number is limited. That's why we could not make any noise in West about Bangladesh genocide. And also Bangladesh, after the killing of, let me begin with during the war, people fought and made sacrifice. They have high expectation that right after liberation, we will have job, I will have no property, no poverty, blah, 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 blah. But in fact, it was a devastated country from the war, and then hundreds of thousands of refugees were there. Road communication was broken. There was no resources to make Bangladesh a self-sufficient country within 1 or 2 years. So when Bangabandhu was making long-term project, because four principles were foundation of our liberation war. One is democracy, one is the secularism, economic development, Bengali nationalism. So for economic development, it cannot be solved in one day. That's why Bangabandhu made long-term plan. For democratic country, the fundamental foundation of democracy is the constitution. He wrote a constitution for Bangladesh in very short time, about an year. Then he formed a planning commission for economic development. And then he rebuilt the roads and highways to make communication better. And these hundreds of thousands of refugees came back into the country. He tackled that situation. So while he was try to solve the current problem as well as long-term problem, then anti-liberation forces conspired and killed him. After his killing, the country was turned back. Those liberation war ideals were thrown out. In political terms, we say these military rulers, they tried to make Bangladesh a mini Pakistan. But we fought against Pakistan to build a new nation based on those four principles. So people has high hopes, high expectation, and Bangabandhu could not solve this. He had no magic in his hand, no magical power.
Well, it
So
takes
that's
time.
why, a very short time.
There's now. First of all, I do know that you had a time limit. How much time do we have together?
How much? How?
Is there
Oh
Dr.
my God!
Nabi?
It's about 2 hours.
Yeah, it's already, and I didn't even feel it. I didn't even realize it's here.
No, but what happens every day I am doing, and I feel a little bit tired. So let's stop today,
Okay.
and we'll meet again.
That it would be an honor, sir. I want to talk to you about Sharmila Bosch. I want to talk to you. I mean, we just got to the 25th
Can you
night.
can you read Bengali?
Of course, of course.
And then read my book. Send me your address. I will mail you the war
Kissinger
crime
book.
committed in Bangladesh by Pakistan and role of Nixon and Kissinger. That is important. We can discuss that in next session.
Of course, I would love that. I think that would be a
You
more
email me your home address. I will
absolutely,
mail
sir.
you some books.
But it's funny that we've only just got to the night of our independence, the March 26th, and it's been 2 hours.
We did not go to liberation war yet
at all, and I think that that's a podcast in itself. Given
and also I used to discuss about the genocide also one day.
Of course,
that is also will be another session.
Absolutely.
The next session we can do with the war,
mm-hmm.
And then next session is the genocide and role of Nixon Kissinger.
Absolutely, and there has to be one about Bangabandhu. Because I think that is one in itself, and I think as you approach his birthday, we can do that one.
Oh yeah, sure.
And as I've said, there aren't enough hours in the day for me to not want to talk to you. There's so much I want to ask, and being a diaspora, having grown up here, there's so much we miss from our own heritage and our own culture, and there's only so much you can read in books. As you mentioned that your co-warriors, the people from my father was a Muktyoddha, and as you were, and they are getting to that age where it's, not many more of them are left. And in 2008, I worked in a documentary for PBS, mainly because about World War II and its veterans, mainly because they were dying at an alarming rate. And it was that time where we would lose that story, lose that history. So I am honored that you took the time today to speak with us. We're both honored, and to because these history would be lost. Not everyone goes around picking up a book every day, but I think your voice resonates and your story resonates. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do
So
you-
we'll talk again, and thanks for inviting me to your show. I will share my experience next time on
Thank you, sir.
those issues what you mentioned.
Okay, thank you so much. Mike, anything else?
Yeah, we're gonna have most of the information on his bio page, and
Yes.
we hope to have this intellectual man of history
Yeah.
back again. And
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. You have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.